I want to tell you about some important decisions that we have made after discussion with our trustees and importantly with all the staff. We want to remind people of why we use the social media in the way that we do and some decisions we're going to take in that regard. Firstly, our social media content and my videos are directed primarily at people who follow and support, and many of you donate, and without that we couldn't survive. However, we also have made it very clear that we will always be transparent. We don't just present pretty fluffy photographs in the hope that people will feel attracted to donkeys and support us. We try to tell you the truth, and I have repeated many times, we tell you when there's a problem, when they're on the way, what we do and the outcome. Sometimes it's a joyous outcome, sometimes it's very sad and it has to be an animal euthanized. And we don't want to interfere with that format because I think that format is appreciated. However, when we're dealing with donkeys and mules, most people are perfectly content. Now that we are dealing with horses as well, the world appears to be full of horse experts. So I want to tell you a little bit about horses in Morocco. Morocco is the land of horses. The Moroccans love horses. They have been used for centuries as fighting animals to defend the country. We have the story of fantasias, and there is so much to say about the barb in Morocco and the Arab horse in Morocco. But also alongside that, a lot of horses suffer. Those that are used to pull carts in a most inappropriate way, who are still subject to harsh bits and whipping. And during the pandemic, we have had very serious issues with the caleche horses. The caleche horses, for those who don't know, are the horses who pull the tourist carts around Marrakesh. Attitudes to horses are very different to attitudes to horses in the West. Some are good, some are bad, and we have to find our place within that. Where we are, I think, quite unique, and I think that would have to be accepted, is that we have taken horses here to retire who live free, that they're not tethered, they have access to a hectare of land, and they are treated very differently to the way that horses would normally be treated. Save for perhaps some of the horses that are trained for horse racing, the king's horses, those that belong to the very privileged and maybe have access to a lot of space. It has been quite an experiment, and some of the horses who are here are old and they are happy to trot round the field, keep themselves to themselves, interact with each other with no problem. But of course, what we are discovering is that a donkey and a mule is fine. A donkey and a mule will stay in its paddock or go to the bottom field and occupy itself, even though they're highly intelligent. A horse needs to be occupied and to use its brain. This is very, very important. And one of the finest experiments, now I don't mean that in a negative way, I mean in a positive way, that we have conducted here at the refuge, is taking the caleche horses. And Lauren and Hardy are perfect examples. They came in an appalling state. Those of you who know us will remember that they were starved close to death. They were skin and bone and ribs. Once they were looked after, fed, restored to good health, of course they fight. Now, these are all ungelded stallions, by the way. All the Kalesh horses are ungelded stallions. And we were told that we could never really work with Excalis horses, and traditionally when they're past their working life, they're slaughtered. However, the two that came to us were still quite young. And once we'd got past the fighting ungelded stage, restored them to health, we had them gelded, and they still fought. And the men had to work very hard with them to actually rehabilitate them to be social with humans and with other animals. And it's been done, and that has been hugely successful. And we are very excited, we're delighted, because we want to look at the next 20 years as to what can be done in respect of Excalis horses. However, we did post a video of Laurel, the white one, where Ayub had been working with it and taught it in a very humane way, but based on the good principles of good liberty trainers, to undertake the bow pose. Of course, as our patron Ellen Cochrane said, it's not to everybody's taste. But what was quite clear is no whips were used. It showed a wonderful connection between Ayub and the horse, and it was trained in a very positive way. And when people criticise and say, you shouldn't be doing that, you know, they're perfectly happy just to be left free. Of course they are, but these are young horses, and these have been marching the streets of Marrakesh for years. They've been using their brains. They look for the traffic lights. They know when to stop when it's red, to go when it's green. We can't take them out of that life and give them nothing to use their brains with. So even if the bow isn't to your taste, it is good for the horse. And I will stand by that. However, one person commented that, was this the correct way to treat horses? And reminded everybody that she had seen this chap, who happened to be Ayub, standing on horses previously. Of course, a lot of you rallied to our defence, but we are transparent and we are open, and I'll tell you exactly what happened. When Simo and Ayub did a 9-hour journey down to collect the two retired elderly ladies who were in good health and strong. They stayed overnight en route, and then they had to drive them home. And the reality is, they drove for 12 hours. They had to drive very slowly and stop frequently. And Ayub was the only driver, and they did it in one, and that was a huge feat. And when they arrived to collect the horses, the grooms and the people who worked there, who were absolutely superb, helped Ayub load the two of them onto our truck. And our truck is not really designed for horses. We bought it to transfer donkeys, but it's the only transport we could get or we could arrange. And it wasn't easy to get two very large horses side by side, safe and fastened in our truck. And as they'd done that, and the grooms and the staff were standing behind the truck, and Ayub had been in front of the horses, fastening them to come past, he did. He got up and he stood with a foot on each horse. Now, think about it. If that had been Ben Atkinson, who everybody loves, oh, that would have been wonderful, absolutely wonderful. For Ayub, it was actually the joy of having those horses in the truck. And he stood and he waved to the people at the bottom that it was successful. It did no harm to those horses at all. Of course, I realised afterwards, oh my golly gosh, people are going to look at that and say, that's cruel. And there was no benefit keeping that photograph there with the story that went with it. So I took it down. So, of course, someone had seen it, didn't know us, had no contact with us before, and they said, this is the chap that stood on horses, and now he's doing these, implied term, cruel with Laurel. Outrageous. This is what we've decided. We don't just remove posts unless there's good reason. And I left that post there and I answered it. I hope I answered it fairly accurately. But what we're going to do in future is if we get negative comments, and I mean negative, I don't mean people who say, oh, I don't quite agree with that and are prepared to have a dialogue. That's quite different. Of course, we're open to criticism. But if they're negative comments from people who know nothing of us, have not obviously followed us, do not support us, do not donate, I will block you. I will not change my approach. I will not just put glossy photographs on to please you. I will block you because the purpose of these videos is to inform our supporters. Secondly, I will not have my staff criticised. I could not have done what we've done here without these incredible staff. You think about it. Simo and Ayub did that huge journey. It's like driving from the south coast to the north of Scotland to collect 2 retired horses. They go out during the night if there's an emergency. They will do whatever is asked of them. And anyone who visits here knows that the animals here are happy and have an incredibly good relationship with the staff. This video is going on a bit, but I think it's an important video, so I hope you bear with me. We will continue as we have before, and I hope you understand that if we do decide to block people, it is because we are not prepared to be sabotaged. We've had our difficulties this year. We've been threatened with being sued by another charity. That didn't go very far, and I'm not going to revisit that now. But we are going to continue to work in the way that we have always worked. And there's a lot more that I'd like to say to you, but that will have to wait till next time. I would remind you that we took the old mule from Casablanca yesterday, and that was quite a task. And while Ayub gets a lot of the credit because he drives the truck, and deservedly so, I think it's quite important. We had visitors here when the mule arrived, and they were, to use a Liverpool term, gobsmacked to see what happened the minute the mule arrived. The rest of the staff, led by Dani, all sprung into action to ensure that the mule was received properly, it was showered correctly, wounds were treated, it had a freshly strawed stable and was as comfortable as it could be for the night. And then during the night, we had a little boy born to a donkey that had come to us in November, had lost a hoof. So we've actually attached a very small prosthesis because we think that we may be able to grow another hoof. And was pregnant and had the baby in the night. So on that day, we didn't just save 1 donkey, we saved 2. And, you know, what are 2 donkeys in the big scheme of things in this dreadful world where Europe may be at war? But of course, what it represents is caring and compassion. And the people who care for these animals show incredible care and compassion to everybody else as well. And through the fruits of our labour, we are the largest client of the people who supply the alfalfa, the straw, the tibbon, the noala, everything. The village benefits from us being here. There are more visitors to the village and so on. So before you criticise and think that you're going to in some way get a reaction from me or bring me down, no, you won't, because we're proud of what we've done and we will continue to do what we're proud of. So sorry this has been so long. I'll put it on YouTube. It will make it easier for everyone. So bye for now.